Hello there, YouTubers. This is my newly acquired lathe. Hopefully one or two of you out there can give me some bits of advice about them. I mean, I did do quite a bit of training while I was an apprentice years ago on turning. I had about 3 months at college, but I mean that was a long time ago, and I did a sort of real old-fashioned well, I'm an electrician really, but an old-fashioned apprenticeship where they did, even though you're an electrician, they did teach you bits of milling and turning and welding and things like that, sort of basic metalworking skills, if you like. So I've always wanted a lathe. I had a small Drummond round bed lathe when I was a child, really. I was sort of 10 or 12, which somebody gave me, but we could never get it to work very well. There was a lot of play in the headstock, and the chuck used to wobble around all over the place. It was pretty much worn out, really. And I wound up selling it, sold it, and bought a guitar with the money, which yeah, proved okay, because I've done a bit of rock and roll in my time, and you know, played in a couple of bands and things, and lots of fun. So not all wasted. But anyway, back to this lathe. It's a Sheldon American. I understand from looking at lathes.co.uk that it's a sort of mid-40s one. There's the serial number. I don't know whether that shows up too well. Yeah, it's not too bad. When I look at it, that mark there, as I understand it, is a British Ordnance mark. So it may well have belonged to the military at some point. I think I'm right about that mark. I'm sure I've seen that mark on guns. There's quite a few bits and bobs with the lathe. There's lots of drawers full of tools and things. Loads of stuff with it. Some which is more useful than others. And handily, it surprises me, these gears here are to allow you to do metric screw cutting. If you believe what it says in here, it talks about the teeth, 127 tooth gear wheel and all that. So that was very handy. Hopefully I'll have a, you know, we've got to do a bit of screw cutting, we better do that, okay? Because obviously these days most things in the UK are metric. The slight thing I had with it was I couldn't, you know, the screw cutting gear and the feed didn't want to work. And then when I looked at this gear, I thought, oh, that's broke there. And I don't know if you can just see it there, but it seems like the main problem is the keyway's missing. Looking at some exploded drawings I found on the web, it definitely shows a keyway there. So I've had all this off, so I'm going to measure it up later on and see if I can find a key. I think it's a Woodruff key, sort of half round key. Condition wise, I don't think the lathe's too bad. I mean, there's a few marks on the bed and things like that. Doesn't seem to be a lot of play in the headstock. It all seems to run very smoothly. I think the main problem I've got with it really is the drive. The motor is a little 1 horsepower motor, and the funny thing about it is it's a Newman electric motor which was made in Yate, and that is where I did my apprenticeship back in the 70s and early 80s. And the irony of it all was everything, you know, manufactured in China these days. The Newman sold out to the Shanghai Bicycle Company of all people. They sold their order book to them, and Brooke Crompton actually owns the Newman name now. The problem I seem to have is not, it's a bit dark in here to film very well, but I seem to have some belt slipping going on here. The two belts there, which are the main drive belts up to the headstock, they seem pretty soft and perished, so I guess we're going to be changing some belts here. But there is quite a lot of play in a lot of this when it's running, as you would, adjustment and all the rest of it. So I'm sort of two minds. I'm going to put a different motor on it. I've got a literally out of the skip Siemens motor here, which is 1.5 kilowatt, 2 horsepower. The shaft's a bit short on it, and obviously it's a flange mount motor because it came off of a scrap pump. So I can possibly make a mounting up for it so it's foot mounted. I'm obviously going to hang upside down on these motors. It's sort of half of me thinks, well, maybe I should forget about all the reduction gear here, because I'm going to put an inverter drive on it. and hopefully that'll be featuring another video later on. And obviously I do work in the in industry as an electrician, so I'm pretty familiar with programming up and wiring up inverter drives. So I bought one of these cheap Chinese sort of unbranded things, and hopefully I'll be able to do a little feature on how you wire them up, how you program them. So what I want to do is, at the moment there's a funny little old starter on the end here, old MEM thing, which are purely mechanical starters, and they're not the safest thing really. They don't no volt disconnect. In other words, if you lose the power when you're using the lathe, it'll start up on its own again as soon as the power comes back on. So I think that's the way to go, is the single phase to three-phase inverter, three-phase motor, and hopefully around about here on the front of the lathe there we can put a remote stop-start thing with a reversing switch and a potentiometer to control the speed, and possibly put a little bit further down the lathe another stop button. So that's what we're going to aim to do. A few other things I've got to get for the lathe. There's a 3-jaw and a 4-jaw chuck for it, but there's no outside jaws for either, so don't know whether they're going to be available. Otherwise I might wind up having to buy another chuck. There's a whole load of chucks in the drawers there, but no tailstock chucks, and there's no centres either at all. And some of the Morse taper bits, all right, and no doubt there's bigger ones that go inside the headstock if you're going to turn between the centres there. But all the other adapters and things I got with it are far too big a taper for that. They're sort of MT3s or 4s or something, and I think that's an MT1, if I'm right in saying. So there we go. I had a little go turning yesterday, but like we say, belt slippage seems to be a problem. I must admit I don't really fancy changing the belts inside the headstock there, because presumably, and hopefully some of you people out there can give me a bit of advice on that, it probably means taking the headstock completely apart and taking the mandrel out, and quite a lot of work. But obviously if it's got to be done, it's got to be done, because the belts do feel soft, and well, crikey, I suspect they were fitted back in the days when Jesus was a boy. So, you know, I mean, this machine is, like I say, mid-40s, and I don't suppose the belts have ever been changed more than once, so they were probably changed back in the 50s or the 60s or sometime. Yeah, so like I say, it's quite a big lathe. I think it'll spin 10 inches over the bed, and I think it's a 56-inch, yeah, a 56-inch bed length. So, you know, it'd turn a fair old size shaft if necessary. So there we go. Hopefully in a week or two we'll have an update on this, and we'll be seeing how I'm getting on with the inverter drive. Cheers now.